We are finding part to whole in this lesson. You are finding a part of a percent, and it is always dealing with 100%. When working with a table, you have to read what you have on your table first. We've got the number of toppings, 0, 1 topping, 2 topping, more than 2 toppings. We've got the frequency, how many people liked that topping. So we have 7 that liked cheese only, 6 that had 1 topping, 4, 2 toppings, more than 2 toppings, 3. Now, it's very important that we count the total so we know what we're working with. And when you're doing a test, they're not going to have this little box that says total at the bottom. You're going to have to remember to do that. And on your test, there will be a question where you have to remember to do that in order to do the problem. So if we have 7 here, 6 here, that's 13, 4 more, 14, 15, 16, 17, plus 3 more, that's going to be 20. So our total is 20. And always write that as a fraction, 20 over 20, because that's going to give us our whole, because 20 divided by 20 is a whole, and we'll show more about that in a minute. So now we've got to go to all of our pizza toppings and make a fraction with it, and now that we know the total is 20. So for cheese only, that would be 7 over 20, 1 topping, 6 over 20, 2 toppings, 4 over 20. I'm going to put it over here where I have room. More than 2 toppings, 3 over 20. That's a 3. Now, that does not mean this is 7%. We can't make a percent until the bottom number is 100. And that's where our proportional table comes into play. That's why you are working with tables, so you'll know how to do percents. So we're going to do the percent for each one of them on the table. And you're going to do this too, one at a time. So let me give you a second to get ready and make sure you're on this slide. All right, so we'll start with 7/20 for 0 toppings. So the part is 7, the whole is 20. And remember, the middle column is our process column. Then we do just like we've done with proportional tables. How do we get from 20 to 100? And with percents, it's always going to be 100 at the bottom. Well, that would be times 5. And what is 7 times 5? 35. So that would be 35%. And you would do that for each one of those. So the next one you would do is 6/20. So you would erase this and all of this because it's going to be different, and put your 6 there. And you're going to notice, because it's 20 on the bottom on all of them, that the process column is going to be pretty much the same, because 20 times 5 is always going to equal 100, so that's not going to change. 6 times 5, 30%. The thing to remember is it's always going to equal 100. So when you're making your table, this last column should always say 100 at the bottom. Okay, and go to the next one. And I'm going to keep it as times 5, because 20 is at the bottom of all of my numbers. So my next one would be 4/20. What's 4 times 5? 20. 20%. And 3/20. 15%. Now, I want to show you at the bottom why we put 20 over 20 as well, and what that would look like as a percent. Because if it's the whole thing, shouldn't it equal 100%, the whole thing? So it's still got a 20 at the bottom. But now, 20 over 20, you put that at the top, 20 times 5 is 100. So 100% divided by 100% equals a whole. So it's still 100%. Okay, so that is how you find percents. So right here, you would write 100% if you had a total table to write. Now we're going to go to the next slide, now that we know all the percents, and we're going to write them. Let me get this ready. All right, so give you a second to go ahead and write the percents there again that you wrote in the other slide. All right, so cheese was 35%, one topping was 30%, two toppings was 20%, and more than two toppings was 15%, and of course this was 100%, and the total was 20 over 20. Now what you're going to learn is how to use a bar graph to show parts of and find percent as well. So you learned how to do it with a proportional table. Now you're going to learn how to show that with a bar graph. So your bar graph is always going to be divided into 10 pieces like this one. So you already have one drawn for you. So you're just going to use that bar graph to put your percentages in. So now we're going to put the percentages wherever they go. Now, each part of this bar graph is worth 10. So the first thing you need to do is write that. So 10 would be here, then 20. So give yourself some time and write that. The 100 is already there, but I'll go ahead and write it. Now, we have a key. It says 0 toppings, 1 topping, 2 toppings, more than 1 topping. And we're just going to, it says, what key are you going to use? Well, we're just going to say Z is for 0, O is for 1 topping, T is for 2 topping, and M is for more than 2 toppings. So Z, O, T, M. All right, now since I am counting by tens, I want to start my graph by using the ones that are counting by tens first. It just makes it easier. So the 1 topping is 30%. So what I would do is I would pick a color. I'm going to just start with red. This is 30%. Just trace it. And then I'm going to write O for 1 topping. Okay, that means all of this is 1 topping. I'm not going to color it because that'll get confusing in a minute if we color it. So go ahead and make that for the 30%. And I'm going to check this off because I'm done with that one. Then I'm going to pick a different color. So I'll give you time to do that. So the next one that's counting by tens, and you'll see why in a minute why I want to start with that one, is 20%, the 2 toppings, 20%. So I picked a different color. Now this is what you need to know. It doesn't mean it's right here. Oh, that's the 20%. No, you go right beside it and you go, okay, yes, this says 40 and 50, but we're counting by tens. So 10, 20. That's 20% on a bar graph. It's not 50%, it's 20%. So make sure you understand that and put a T. That is 20% of our bar graph, 10, 20. Remember the 1 toppings is 10, 20, 30%. All right, so we're done with that. All right. Now we're going to go and do our 35% for cheese only. 35%. Let me pick a different color. Now I'm going to count again by tens. 10, 20, 30, and then I'm going to have to go in the middle for 35. And that's the cheese only or the 0 toppings. So we're going to put a Z. So that's 10, 20, 30, 35%, just like our graph says. Now, as you can see, maybe you're starting to see why I wanted to start with the tens. The last one we have is our 15%, and it works out perfectly because that's all that's left is 15%. And that's correct because we want to use 100% of our whole bar graph. If we had some left over, we did something wrong. There should be nothing, no boxes left over, no parts left over. Nothing should be left over. If that ever happens, you did something wrong. Okay, so that is how you draw it on a bar graph. And we'll be doing more practice with those tomorrow.